Be happy. Be healthy. Be your best. Be your best.
So today I'm going to talk a little bit more about vitamin D. I was privileged to come to Jamaica a week or so ago and have been able to help some with what's going on down here. Please keep them in mind. It's been a real eye-opener to see what these people are going through. There's a lot of them still with no electricity and some of them with no water, and that's in the good areas. Up in the hills, it's even more desperate. So really keep them in mind. They're really going through a rough time. So vitamin D. So one of the things with your skin and vitamin D is that if you get sun without getting a sunburn, you actually decrease your chances of skin cancer. It's all in the way that you get the sunshine and just making sure that you don't get a sunburn. You see, when that UVB hits the skin, it actually interacts with cholesterol. Without cholesterol, you cannot make vitamin D. And not only can you not make vitamin D if you don't have cholesterol, you can't make cell membranes. A good part of the brain is cholesterol. Same thing with hormones. You can't make hormones properly unless you have enough cholesterol as well. So even bile, we can't make bile without cholesterol. So there's a lot of benefits to having the proper amount of cholesterol in the body, but that's a discussion for another day. So things like statins and low-fat diets, they can actually cause problems when it comes to vitamin D. It inhibits the body from making vitamin D. So the sun hits the skin and it converts cholesterol, which then gets activated by the kidneys and the liver. So what's the recommended daily allowance generally for vitamin D? Well, it's only 600 units. And really, vitamin D toxicity is very, very rare. And 600 units a day is actually very, very small. So there are 19,000 genes in the body that need vitamin D. When there isn't adequate vitamin D in the body, there's a problem. Can be a problem with infections. There can be problems with depression. And in doing the research, I found there's actually 69% of the population is deficient in vitamin D. That's a huge amount. A lot of it has to do with where you live. There are certain parts around the equator where the vitamin D is sufficient, and people's diets can be where it supports the body's ability to do vitamin D. But if you're anywhere in the United States, like I'm in Colorado, and in Colorado, we actually get a lot of sunshine, but we're above the line where even with all the sunshine that we get in Colorado, where I am, a lot of people are deficient in vitamin D. Part of it is that a lot of the times, even when they go outside, all they are exposing is their face, so they don't get enough body exposure in order to make them enough vitamin D. The other thing is that a lot of people are just really scared of the sun. A lot of them are constantly covering up with hats and clothing and using sunscreen, and they don't realize that they aren't getting enough safe exposure in order to have proper vitamin D levels. The other thing is that you don't want to be deficient in different things that the body relies on in order to convert and do vitamin D. Folate, niacin, magnesium, all of these things are needed in order to have it be where the body is doing vitamin D correctly. So what happens with vitamin D? Well, is there a risk in taking too much vitamin D? Now the recommendations are starting to come through to take 10,000 units a day, 10,000 international units. What does that actually mean? Well, 10,000 international units of vitamin D is not even a quarter of 1 milligram. So, no. The RDA recommendation of 600 to 800 units a day is really low. So 10,000 might just sound like, wow, that is huge. But you have to understand that vitamin D is not actually a vitamin so much as like a hormone. So why would anybody even ever recommend taking 10,000 units a day or 5,000 units a day, more than what has been recommended for forever as being the recommended daily allowance? Well, part of it is that there can be a lot of barriers to absorption, a lot of things that aren't working in the body properly. So, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes people go out and then only their face is exposed. That's not going to work. The other thing is you can't get enough eggs, fish, cod liver oil, the things that have vitamin D. You can't get enough of those to get those levels to where they need to be. Another thing is if people are overweight. If people are overweight, it's harder for the sun to penetrate if there's fat right below the skin. So that's something that can be really problematic too. Other things that can interfere are metabolic syndrome. It's older when people are harder. People like me whose skin is darker to begin with, it's harder for the vitamin D through the skin as well. Gallbladder problems and fatty liver problems can be an issue with processing vitamin D. This can be all of these things. Problems with the kidneys can make it where vitamin D supplementation has to be a lot higher. So even viruses can affect receptor sites and can make it where viruses can regulate the receptor sites where they won't even let the vitamin D be absorbed. So one of the other things is blood tests. So let's say that somebody's like, okay, well, I'm going to consider taking more vitamin D, but I'm going to go get a blood test. The problem is that the blood test is actually testing the inactive form of vitamin D. The active form of vitamin D only has a 4 to 6 hour half-life, whereas the inactive form is a couple of weeks. So the blood tests don't always give accurate information because they're measuring the inactive form of vitamin D. The other thing about that is that with the inactive form, if the body is deficient, it will convert the inactive form for what the body needs. So there's a lot more going on there than just a straight number from a blood test. So what affects this? Well, genetics. There are polymorphisms that can just affect how somebody's body uses vitamin D, converts vitamin D, whether their skin is dark or not, just hereditary tendencies. And so in the vitamin D test that they do, there are 3 things that are tested. So they test to see if people are having a problem from genetics and converting. There's another gene that can cause symptoms of vitamin D deficiency. So another gene can cause problems with transportation of vitamin D. So this is kind of some of the things that they test for when they're doing a test for vitamin D. So let's go back to the amounts. 5,000 units, 10,000 units, sticking with just a daily vitamin. Well, it's really, really interesting. In doing research, I found that there were studies where people took tons and tons and tons of vitamin D for months. And the only side effect that was seen was that if people had a tendency to form kidney stones, they could start forming kidney stones. But the research also showed that if they drank about 2.5 liters of water per day, the flushing through the kidneys caused it where they didn't even have the tendency to make kidney stones, and the body highly benefited from the amount of vitamin D that they were taking. They also made sure that the people were taking what they needed to have the vitamin D absorb and work, which was K2, magnesium, B6, zinc. So this really leaves somebody where they need to really do the research and see what do they really think about vitamin D supplementation. what do they have in their life that is possibly making it where they're not getting enough vitamin D? What are some of the steps that somebody can take? Well, they can increase their exposure to sunlight. Early morning sunlight is incredibly, incredibly advantageous. It not only helps with vitamin D, but it also helps with resetting circadian rhythms and the pineal gland and getting sleep cycles better. Very, very valuable for the body to get at least 10 minutes of early morning sunshine each day, and then later in the day as well. Also making sure that the diet has natural forms of vitamin D as well that the body can use. And then look into the supplementation of vitamin D, because studies are increasingly showing that the blood tests do not give all the information that we need, that the levels that are considered toxic are now being revisited as not being harmful to the body at all, and that people can take a lot more vitamin D and not have any adverse effects at all, but rather experience a lot of positive effects to the body. So do your research, and if you feel like you are at risk for any of the things for taking higher amounts of vitamin D, by all means, question your primary caregiver. But at the same time, consider that vitamin D is emerging as something that is extremely important to the body, and that remembering that if you just do not get sunburned, but if you keep your exposure to where you don't harm the skin, you actually can get a lot of benefits from being out in the sun, as well as a lot of benefits from proper supplementation.
Be your best. Be happy.